Very happy tonight to have an interesting and very different event. Last night we were out watching a 20-foot tall John Yoo make his points justifying and legalizing torture while he was debated from the ground by lawyers from the National Lawyers Guild and law students and activists.
The fun for me as a novelist is to read about events in the world and to try to understand the minds of the people behind these events. Talked a lot about John Yoo tonight. You know, John Yoo does not think he's a villain. I'm sure of it. He looks in the mirror and he sees a hero. So it's an interesting process for me to try to get into the mind of someone like John Yoo.
A lot of what you were trying to do, Barry, with trying to get inside the minds of these people, it's exactly what I set out to do as well, because I could not understand how someone could abuse someone else or engage in torture. So I said to these people, you know, bring me into your head, explain this to me, make me understand not only what it feels like to torture someone, but what it feels like to justify that. And it was just such a huge leap. But in the book, I was hoping to be able to bring people inside that mindset. So like you're saying, if you understand deeply how they're thinking, then it's easier to address it. And then the other question that you're saying with, you know, whether you just stick to the facts or not. I mean, on the one hand, people doubt what happens over there despite all this evidence. So it was so important to make sure everything was so accurate, because people will jump on one small discrepancy and try and use it to discount all the evidence we have out there. But also, there was no need, because the stuff that's happening there is so surreal and incredible, and it's just, you can't make this stuff up.
You know, the problem with all of this is that it doesn't remove from Guantanamo the unique element about that place, which is what makes it so intolerable, which is that it remains an experiment in detention that has no place in what we understand as the lawful detention of prisoners. If the people who are held there now, and you know, we've had habeas corpus cases for the last 2 years, and through rulings that have been made there, we know that some of those people who are still held at Guantanamo had nothing to do with anything. And we know now that some of those people are confirmed as low-level foot soldiers for the Taliban, who were in Afghanistan before 9/11, but who may afterwards have either been unable to teleport themselves instantly out of the country, or who maybe, you know, were happy that the conflict had morphed into one against the United States. You know, and there are a small number of alleged terrorist suspects there who still haven't had their day in court. One of them is getting his day in court in New York at the moment. But for all of these people who are still held there, they're innocent men.
Now, I'll wind up with John Yoo's expressed opinion that we need to go extraordinarily outside the realm of international law. Now, that might be true if we're talking about freedom of speech, if we're talking about the right to have a union, if we're talking about the right of children to education, and the state in which that promise has been made through a legally binding contract. The state finds itself in economic despair, or they're facing a state of war, or a monsoon has put upon them, or there is desertification in these desert, if you will. All of those things give the state a right, a legal right, to suspend certain rights of individuals to which they have made a legally binding commitment. I repeat, torture is not among those. It is never, under any circumstances, at the cost of the life of the nation. And it says so in the Treaty Against Torture, and there's a copy on the table over there of the treaty. I have just one. But under no circumstances may that occur. Now, Professor Yoo knows that as well as now all of us.
Well, that among the allegations of human rights abuses among detainees held in U.S. custody is outright medical experimentation, involuntary experimentation, which you can see in the early days of the waterboarding regime, when there are doctors in the room observing detainees and how they react to waterboarding, and then the protocols are adjusted to basically ratchet up the amount of torture that they take before they die. And you know, if torture isn't straight out of the annals of Nazi Germany, medical experimentation on human beings against their consent certainly is.